How do you do? Another week's gone by. Now, if you watched these videos before, you probably know by now I'm Dave Wood, and this is Semiosis 101. So if you want to, you can fast forward to today's video. But if you're a newbie, stay exactly where you are. Stay with me, as this is your first Semiosis 101 video. And if it is, I'm Dave Wood, a design educator and researcher, and a published design author. And I've worked commercially as both a freelance illustrator and graphic designer. Now, I actually use semiotics all the time in my creative work, but probably like yourselves, I was never taught semiotic theory at design school. I'm a Scouser from Liverpool and a New Scot, and this Scout Scot Semiosis 101 YouTube channel focuses on explaining Peircean semiotic theory in a more designer-centric way to visual communication designers, illustrators, graphic designers. Now, the guy behind the theory, Charles Sanders Peirce, was a philosopher, a mathematician and a theorist, but he wasn't a creative. Now, I have a PhD in visual communication, and I took until my doctorate to actually study semiotic theory in order to really understand how to apply semiosis, the active sign action of semiotic science, when producing visual communication work. So, each week on this Scout Scot Semiosis 101 YouTube channel, I'll post at least one 10-minute explainer video on an aspect of Peirce's pragmatic semiotic theory. Each free Semiosis 101 10-minute video will use designer-centric terms instead of theoretical language, so that illustrators and graphic designers can understand and follow. Each video will feature a take-home piece of applicable semiotic theory, and they do interconnect to build up your understanding of semiosis. But this channel is not a course in semiotics per se. Instead, think about each video as a bite-sized illustrated piece of new knowledge on sign action, or semiosis as Peirce names it. The aim of these free videos is to take Peirce's quite complex philosophical theoretical language and put it in the context of designing visual communication, whether these are illustrations, motion, branding, packaging, editorial, etc. So whether you're just interested in semiotics, or you are a semiotician, a visual communicator, an illustrator, or a graphic designer interested in knowing how Peirce's semiosis theory can help to enhance your visual communication skills, then please like these videos, subscribe to this channel, and if you want to be notified when next week's video hits YouTube, hit the bell button below. Let's get to today's second episode on general Peircean semiotic theory for illustrators and designers. Today, in around 10 minutes, we will focus on how Peirce's sign action, semiosis, differs from Saussure's semiology. We will see how Peirce's triadic relationship between the concept, how it's represented and then interpreted offers visual communicators, illustrators and designers a powerful theoretical scaffolding around which you can enhance your visual communication effectiveness. It will be a theory-packed 10 minutes of Peirce's semiosis in designer-centric terms. So, stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell, let's go. In the previous video, I talked about the two different forms of semiotic theory. So what we have is essentially two pieces of semiotic theory, one developed in Europe and one developed in North America at the early stage of the 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century. In Europe, the philosophy of semiotics is classed as a structuralist philosophy. It comes from, it's called semiology, and Saussure developed it, which was then taken further by other philosophers into, an expanded theory. In America, in North America, in the same period of time, we have Charles Sanders Peirce developing the philosophy of pragmatism, and also as part of that development of pragmatism, he is responsible for his semiotic theory, which from a graphic design, illustration, visual communication design point of view, I'm calling semiosis. It's a word he defined himself, which is essentially meaning sign action, the action of the sign. So all the videos are going to be focusing more on Charles Sanders Peirce, but this first video here is going to look at the just slight differences between the two. I'm not going to go into great depth about semiology because I'm going to lead towards semiosis instead. So just as an overview of the fundamental aspects of semiology. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than what I'm going to be covering in this talk. But for a sign to function from a semiology point of view, and for that sign to communicate to us, it has two functional parts. And this is the thing, if you say semiotics to people, I think this is the one that most people will say if they know anything about semiotics: the signifier and the signified. So these two terms are from Saussure, are from semiology. It's talking about the signifier and the signified. So what does that actually mean? Well, here's an example. A signifier could be the colour red. The colour red as a semiotic sign could mean any of these things. It could be meaning fire, it could be meaning passion, it could be meaning anger, danger, strength. That would be what would be classed as the signified from the signifier. So red is the signifier, it signifying something, and the signified is the meaning we take from what's being signified. So it could be fire, passion, anger, danger, strength, depending on what context we see the colour red in as a semiotic sign. So that's coming through Saussure. So just to summarise the fundamental starting points of semiology. The signifier is the form of the sign. It could be a word, image, sound, etc. But we're talking about visual communication here. So, we're talking about things that we can see visually, whether or not that's words or images. The signified is the concept that is being represented by the signifier. So the signifier and the signified comes together as part of the semiotic sign that semiology discusses in more depth, in more theory. So if you're interested in this particular area of semiotics, there's loads of books out there if you want to follow a structuralist linguistic approach to semiotics. But I'm just going to flip to now, essentially, semiosis. Charles Sanders Peirce, philosopher, he basically created or was one of the founding fathers of pragmatism, a new philosophy coming out in North America. He says in his writings, nothing is a sign unless it is interpreted as a sign. And that's really crucial to what we're going to explore over all of these videos that I'm going to be putting on this channel. Nothing is a sign unless it is interpreted as a sign. It's that word interpreted that is going to be the linchpin to everything that we talk about. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, one of the problems, and I'll say this up front because this is what I'm going to be unpacking come all the videos, is that Peirce, being a philosopher, came up with lots of different terms he invented that in a way obfuscates his intention of what the theory can actually help with. And one of these words here is in the first line, a sign or representamen. So there's one word already, representamen, is something which stands to somebody for something in some respective capacity. It addresses somebody, that is, creates in the mind of that person an equivalent sign or perhaps a more developed sign. That sign, which it creates, I call, which is Peirce calls, the interpretant of the first sign. Two words already, representamen, interpretant. The sign stands for something, its object. Now these words are crucial to how Peirce describes his semiotic theory. Representamen, interpretant, and object. So I'll unpack those three words as we go through videos. And the whole intent behind these videos is I place Peircean semiotic theory in more designer-centric terms. But it's important to drop in here the actual language that Peirce uses in his theory, because that is the big blockage as far as trying to apply it to graphic design illustration, because we don't use these terms. We've never come across these terms if we're reading Peirce from scratch. So let's just go through that again and replacing his words with something that we understand. Okay, so here's my translation of what he's saying in the terms of visual communication. A sign, its representation, is something which stands to somebody for something in some respect or capacity. The representation addresses somebody. That is, it creates in the mind of that person an equivalent sign or representation, perhaps, of a more developed idea. That sign which it creates is essentially that person's interpretation of the representation. That representation stands for something, a concept. So by changing those words to object, the concept you start from, how that concept is represented, and then how that representation is then interpreted by your audience, is essentially the fundamentals of how to apply Peircean semiotic theory into visual communication design, graphic design, illustration. And that brings us to what we have that he describes is a determination flow. The concept that needs to be communicated, how you represent that concept, leads to its interpretation, and that interpretation should put in the mind of the audience the concept you need to communicate. And that sums up the visual communication journey, and within there we can look at ways of using Peircean semiotic theory to enhance our visual communication skills, to improve how effectively we communicate to our intended audiences, from the client through how we create the design outcomes, illustration outcomes that will then be taken by our target audiences and understood by them, that leads them back to the original concept. So some of those awkward words that Peirce uses in his theory, that becomes straight away problematic to anybody who is not Peirce, because we have to understand what does he mean by these complex terms. So Peirce uses a three approach to everything he does, a triadic approach. So everything is in threes. So we have the concept, the object, representament, which is representation, interpretance, which is basically the interpretation of it. There's the first major triad of terms. And within each of those, we have three different levels of complexity. And there's that word. I'm going to be making all these things accessible to designers and illustrators as we go through videos. Representament is split into three different levels. So the representation is got three different levels. Everything from what he calls a quali sign, a synth sign, up to a legi sign. I'm not going to unpack them yet. They will be in future videos. We'll unpack them in future videos. The interpretants, he classes in three different levels, from simple to complex: the rime, dissonant, and argument. Again, I'm not going to unpack them right now. I'm just putting these terms out here because these will be refined as designer-centric terms over coming videos. And the ones that we're going to be focusing on more so in the very early stages of the videos is about the concept, the representation of the concept. And even here, there are two terms that have now developed different meanings in visual communication design than when Peirce came up with these. So in Peirce, simple to complex, the representation of the concept, icon, index, and symbol. An icon and a symbol now has different meanings or other meanings within design. So I'm going to be unpacking those as we go through. So at this stage, I just wanted to show these different terms, which is just underpinning how complex Peirce's language is, which means that these videos are going to be really important to translate these into designer-centric terms so that designers can have Peircean theory more accessible to their day-to-day terms of use. So that is our 10 minutes of Peircean Semiosis 101 for this week. We now have a clearer understanding of the key differences between Saussure's semiology and Peirce's semiosis theories of semiotics. Saussure's semiology focuses on the signifier and the signified, and Peirce's semiosis involves the audience directly in the sign action. Designing for audiences is embedded in our design process from ideation to publication, and Peirce's semiosis utilises the sign action power between what the concept is, how it's represented, which facilitates an interpretation. This interpretation leads the audience connotatively to the concept, thus completing what Peirce calls a determination flow. Over the coming weeks in Semiosis 101, we will explore how this semiotic determination flow can be applied to enhance visual communication in illustration and graphic design. I hope as creatives you agree that Peirce's semiotic theory of semiosis offers a lot of rich pickings to enhance our visual communication skills. There will be another video next week, so come back again. By following this Scout Scott YouTube channel, you will learn how Peirce's pragmatic semiotic theory of semiosis can help to enhance and improve how you visually communicate. Now, I do have many more Peircean semiotic topics to discuss on this channel, but I would be interested in hearing about your semiotic ideas. Add a comment below. And if you like this video, check out my other semiotic videos and consider liking and sharing the videos with others. You see, the more we creatives discuss semiotic theory, the easier its application into our creative processes will be. Over the years, I've collaborated with other design academic researchers and Peircean semioticians to develop a designer-centric explanation of Peirce's theoretical language. If you are interested in reading my semiotic Rosetta Stone academic writing, then you can visit my academia.edu link in the description. As a fellow creative and a published design author, I also have links in the description to my Scout Scott Redbubble shop featuring illustrated and typographical gift ranges, and to my 2014 design book published by Bloomsbury Publishing, Interface Design, an Introduction to Visual Communication in UI Design. Any other books on Peircean semiotics I've mentioned in the videos are also listed in the description. Check them out too. Thanks for watching. Check out the other videos, like and share them with your friends. And remember to hit the bell button to be notified when next week's video is published. See you all again next week for more Semiosis 101 to help illustrators and designers to enhance your visual communication skills.